Like you, I'm not a government contractor and I don't get paid in Gucci gear to do gun reviews. If anyone's offering, I'm open to it, but unfortunately ARFCOM's vaults keep all the goodies. This is especially true when it comes to night vision related equipment. However, every once in a while, a company will come out with a product that makes me believe my non-six-figure income could afford me the ability to have superpowers like the Mill Bros on IG. This is where the Holosun IRIS 3 enters the chat. But first, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
The proven Crossfire sight is now available in new flavors. Same great, affordable, bomb-proof reflex sight with a 2 MOA reticle and 50,000 hour battery life backed up by the Vortex no questions asked VIP warranty, but now it's available with a tan finish or a green dot.
And by Aguila ammunition. ARs can be hungry little beasties, but rifle ammo usually only comes in boxes of 20 when standard magazines hold 30. That's dumb and makes puppies sad, so Aguila ammunition packages their 5.56 in 30-round boxes. It also is available in sealed battle packs and keeps the ammo tasting fresh for the apocalypse. Traditionally, civilian options for IR illuminators ranged from gray market full-power lasers to a bunch of neutered versions of lasers going for multiple thousands of dollars or are just plain unobtainium. Another problem with these gray market devices is should something break, you'll likely not be able to get them repaired or replaced due to the gray circumstances surrounding them. More recently, there have been some airsoft lasers from China that have been coming into the country for dirt cheap, and some people have attempted to make these work on their night vision builds. But let's just say you get what you pay for, and your mileage may vary. Coming in at just under $1,000, the Holosun IRIS 3 checks a lot of boxes when compared to legacy IR illuminators, and in some cases offers more in features, ergonomics, and switchology. This is a tiny 6.1 ounce IR and Vis laser with an IR illuminator that is designed to directly mount to a 1913 spec rail with a cross-bolt mounting solution. As it's been said many times before me, this non-QD mount is much better than most of the other mounts that IR devices seem to be in love with. Some of these QD mounts can be picky and not fit securely on some rails, while cross-bolt options tend to be more universal, giving you a solid mounting solution for most rails. The housing is constructed of 7075 T6 aluminum and is hard anodized. It also features a front-loading battery compartment. Personally, I prefer this. Typically, 12 o'clock mounted IR devices will run in conjunction with a tape switch that usually sits just behind it. This can cause a clearance issue with the battery cap on legacy devices, requiring you to remove a bunch of stuff just to replace a battery. Having the battery front loading avoids all of this and is a nice quality of life feature. This does take a CR123 battery and shows to have an IPX8 rating, which just means it's sealed and can be submerged in a reasonable amount of water for a reasonable amount of time and still work. It has plus or minus 50 MOA worth of windage and elevation adjustments on the slaved IR and Vis laser. You make those elevation adjustments in half MOA clicks at a time. The detents are nice with audible clicks when adjusting. The lasers are co-aligned. This means that you can zero your Vis laser during the day, and your IR laser, which is running parallel with the Vis one, will match up for nighttime use. Per our testing and other cool kids on the internet, this holds true. As for holding zero, we did not see any POI shift after shooting, but some have reported seeing around 1 MOA shift after a couple hundred rounds. The best feature of the IRIS 3 are the controls. Seriously, for the price, this might be one of the nicest lamps in the market when it comes to illuminator adjustments on the fly. It utilizes a 5-position slider that is smooth to operate with noticeable detents between the different positions. This is a huge step up from other units that require you to twist the illuminator head or turn a dial on the back of the device. Typically, these dials require 2 hands to operate and are small and hard to get to, or flat out impossible to adjust with gloves on. The IRIS 3 allows you to adjust illuminator divergence with only your support hand and allows you to keep your other hand on the fire control. Just behind the slider is the fire button. Hold and release for momentary use and double tap for constant on. On the back, you'll find the mode switches allowing you to swap between Vis or IR, adjust brightness settings, and pick between laser or illuminator or laser and illuminator. These switches are a bit small with pretty stiff detents, making them a bit of a pain to adjust when mounted. However, you will likely set it and forget it, depending on your use case. The inclusion of the crane-compatible plug was also precisely what the people asked for, and Holosun did a good job in delivering. If you don't already have a tape switch of choice, Holosun includes a pretty solid one with the unit that has a fire and Viz override button, so should you need your Viz laser, you don't have to fuck around with the switches on the back, just simply hit the override button. And now onto the laser itself. The VCSEL IR has a claimed 0.7 milliwatt on high output, and from our testing was plenty powerful from 100 all the way out to 500 yards. There might be some higher-end lasers that have higher output, but if it's not in a mixed lighting setting, we don't see this as an issue. Plus, those higher output lasers tend to bloom in obscure targets the further out you try to utilize that laser. The illuminator claims to have 60 milliwatts of output on high, and this showed to be a clean beam pattern with plenty of throw at distance. Our only real complaint in this department was the lack of larger beam pattern on the illuminator. For longer range use, this is not an issue, but for inside of 100 or 50 yards, and especially CQB distances, this beam is small and might hinder situational awareness when compared to illuminators with wider floods like the mall. Because of this, it might be worth running an IR flashlight in conjunction with the IRIS-3 device if you plan on using this in your next indoor milsim event. Now, I'm not an engineer, but the higher output over previous models is due to the transition to VCSEL, or vertical cavity surface emitting lasers. Without getting too into the weeds, VCSEL can provide more output more efficiently than older LED tech, so Holosun is following the trend of other IR devices in the space. This, along with the price, should ensure that the unit will remain relevant for years to come. Overall, this obliterates anything and everything within its price range and will probably start to create some copium prescriptions for a lot of IR devices considerably more expensive than the IRIS-3. With the size, accessories, and features coming in at easily sub $1,000, this makes it an actual game changer for the market and brings night vision ever so close to the average Joe's budget. Now that you are done listening to my either sultry or annoying voice, for the last couple of minutes, we have our more free-form podcast where we kind of talk about our feelings of actually using the unit more candidly. I think there's a unique cone where this thing is probably optimal or like optimally designed around. There's a handful of complaints we do have about the unit. But overall, as far as like having illumination, having good enough output that I feel like it's confident, but also like there was very smart things put into this.
Yeah, there are a couple of complaints that we had, but nothing that was a deal breaker. I think overall, most people who get into night vision, and I say most, not all, but once they kind of get in, they might build one, maybe two guns.
Yeah.
And partially is just because of how expensive it is.
Yeah.
A lot of times, depending on the illuminator you get, you could be spending another $1,500 to $3,000, sometimes $4,000, depending on which one you're going with.
Right.
Which, if you have multiple guns,
God, dude.
it gets to be very expensive. And so I think that where this kind of comes in is it makes it easier for people to get into night vision,
right?
Because you don't have to. We talked about it in the scripted portion, or at least you did talk about it in the scripted portion, how there's options like cheaper options. You can go for like Chinese airsoft lasers, but they break. The warranty on them isn't that great from what I've seen.
Right. I've personally witnessed a couple of heinous breaks, but also just like in tech in general, most people that are buying these, there's going to be two major camps for the majority of people watching this. One, you're a hunter and you want to do nighttime hunting, right? And then two, it's going to be like the milsim crowd that likes to do training. They want to be in those spaces where they get, but the problem is in both of those camps, it's going to get used. It's going to get wet. It's going to get banged around. More than anything, you're going to have to hold it like this. It's just like suppressors, just like everything else. Anything that adds weights to your gun is bad. And I think that's the biggest thing that this almost blows the doors off of everybody on is it manages to have the output you want in a readily available battery. And gives very real, like the IPX rating is there. There's very real performance there for something that's incredibly tiny and lightweight.
I think it's more designed for longer range use, though.
Yeah.
It's not really a wide flood, really, at all. We did some experimenting with it here in the studio at like 10 yards, and we're kind of like, oh, well.
I'm not even seeing a whole human being. Like, you're not a small person.
Yeah.
But like even a 5-foot flat person, I'm only seeing half of that individual.
Yeah.
And the problem is I'm only seeing that one individual. If there's more than one person in a room, if there's more than anything, and even at distance, you got to think even at something like 50 yards, I'm really only getting like night vision's bad enough.
Yeah.
With getting only maybe 30, a 40 degree of view, right? You're basically looking through the joke is always you're looking
And
through.
introduce that even more to
Yeah, this
much of a
yeah,
30.
yeah, this shrinks. This takes your 30, and you're getting like 10% of that 30. And I do I think of the low settings for mixed lighting or whatever is going to be perfectly adequate.
Because we compared it to a couple different things, and even on the high mode, we weren't getting like really bad blooming.
Yeah.
We did have a Somo Gear Ingall that we were messing with. The problem with that is like, oh, it's super, super bright, and it is super, super bright.
Yeah.
But when that laser hits, a target at 100, 200 yards, basically what happens is your laser hits that and just blooms.
Yeah.
And so you are pointing your laser at them, but you lose any ability to like PID. You can't see any definition in them because through your
it's just a
tube,
thing now. Yeah.
it just looks like a big blotch of white.
Depending on the device and depending on the system you're working with, I think in a lot of the hunting situations where you're very lucky to get, even at night, you're very lucky to get to within 100 or 150 yards of an animal.
Yeah.
This starts to make a ton of sense. If you're doing magnified at all, if anything, that cone of view doesn't bother you.
Well, that was
at
the thing
all.
we noticed, or at least I noticed off the start, was that cone that you get when you actually close down the divergence is pretty narrow. I mean, it's as wide as it gets. Like it looks like it's almost designed to be used in that
for that long range purpose,
150 300 yard range. I mean, granted, you could still use it within that. But if you're planning on doing like milsim stuff or you're going to be indoors at short distances, you're definitely going to want some kind of supplementary light.
And kind of bring it back to it, for four-legged creatures, I think this thing crushes. And I think it's maybe more ideally designed for that. But you'll get some of these, again, the Switchology would make you think otherwise, right? Because it's kind of meant to be more on the fly. And even really, if those back couple of positions where you're really widening out, I guess, cone of light, if that was wider, the argument would be very interesting to see if this is for the two-legged people, which is going to be for milsim, or for serious end users. You got to imagine if I'm a police department, right, and I got to go buy 20 or 30 of these devices. They got government money, so it's a little bit different, but as a taxpayer myself, I do like having options like this where if somebody decides to drop or lose their mall, they're not having to up my property taxes a little bit every single time they do that. But I think it was compelling. I think the way it mounts was really, really solid. That the unit felt good. We damn near cooked it on. We were shooting it suppressed with, and again, metal handguard. Suppressor was on it. Suppressor got hot. We could barely hold the rail. That thing didn't have any issue at all with that thing.
You could run it with the, and most people probably will run it with the tape switch. I'm a fan of running it. It depends on like my setup, but usually I'll just run it by just throwing my hand onto the device. The ability to adjust this on the fly, I think, is one of the biggest things. I mean, you have the OGL. The OGL allows you to do that, but good luck finding one if you can find one.
If you found one, let me know.
But it has one of the better divergence adjustments of anything that's on the market currently. And for the price that it comes in, it's kind of like there's nothing really competing with it. So I think it's kind of prodding the industry to hopefully make a response, and hopefully there'll be a response from the industry. But currently right now, I think this is going to eat a lot of people's lunch. And just for the price alone, like I think this is going to push a lot of people over the edge to actually get into night vision who may not have been into it before, or maybe they had a tube and go hiking. They weren't into night vision and shooting, but now they're going to start shooting.
I think a guy running this with a dedicated like IR floodlight, a nicer suppressor, and a nice optic is going to eat the lunch of somebody there is going to be baby copium for the guy that spent all of his money on Credova on the mall, which is objectively a better device, but there's no way you're affording any of that other stuff. Or if you are, it's because your credit score is cool. You didn't Credova it. But I think that you're not going to be lacking in capability, literally all the way out to 400 or 500 yards. I do think this is at least at the prosumer level of product. Normally, like on something that's a third the cost or a fifth of the cost of something else, I tend to put it in like the consumer to like hobbyist grade. I think this is actually a pretty serious unit for serious use. I wouldn't feel underarmed with this in a PVS 14. And again, in common use, until you start to get really close to that person, and then you got other issues, right? At the end of the day, I think this thing really crushes right at about like I'd say 30 yards is probably the minimum I'd want to bump into something in night. with this thing just so I could see and do the PID and all that kind of stuff. But anything past that, 50,
I mean, you could PID
150,
closer. It's just you might be moving a little
you're
bit
kind of
more.
doing one of these. Yeah. I think it's a cool unit. I'm excited to see this hit the market. My challenge to them is have these in stock. That's going to be my only pushback on this is we got this.
I think these are, I would not be surprised if these are going to be out of stock for a while.
Yeah. So if you get a hold of one of these, let us know what your experience is. If you guys have any other questions about the unit, shout out to Josh from Holosun for hooking us up with one of these. We wanted to make sure that we give you guys that opportunity. We can also do follow-ups on shorts if you want very specific setups with this and examples of that. But let us know, and then let us know what your experience was, either with random Chinese ones or this one. Just like Chinese Plus, and then any other cool stuff. If your credit score is better than mine, go ahead and let us know what your experience is. And then follow us on all the socials at AR15Com or ARFCOM, depending on where you're at. Or go check it out. I will be doing a write-up for this on the forums. And, of course, like and subscribe to this because we do content like this weekly, and we try to keep you guys up to date on all the latest products on the companies that are supporting your right to the Second Amendment and to superpowers.